There's no reason why you should know me. I am a very unimportant person. Up until a little while ago, I had a really good job as a serving maid in the house of Caiaphas, the high priest himself. Many less fortunate girls envied me. But I don't work for the high priest anymore, and I'm not sorry. I was on duty last spring, 2 nights before the Passover feast. I'm not likely to forget it. There was a trial, a very unusual night trial, with the full Sanhedrin at the high priest's house. Just between you and me, it was more than unusual. It was illegal. Even I, as a serving maid, knew that. But it was my job to keep the tables supplied, not to worry about the ethics of the situation. I could tell you plenty about what goes on behind the scenes at the temple, but it'll be healthier for me to keep my tongue. Anyway, the place was full of people that night. Pharisees and priests and soldiers and lots of servants like me. The important people were all inside, in the hall of assembly, and the others were hanging around the courtyards in groups, most of them trying to get close to the fire. It was a chilly evening. I was pretty excited by all the unusual activity. I didn't know the first thing about the prisoner they'd dragged in, except he was young, not bad looking, and they'd been knocking him around. A Nazarene, someone said. We don't have all that much use for Nazarenes, or for any other Galileans for that matter. We even have a saying where I come from, can any good thing come out of Nazareth? It's a sort of joke. You can tell a Galilean by their North Country twang. I didn't hear the prisoner speak. We servants were shooed out of the hall of assembly, and I wandered out into the courtyard with everyone else. But there was a man there who was unmistakably a Galilean by his talk. He was a big fellow, in rough clothes, rubbing his hands together over the fire, and he kept looking around as if he were afraid somebody was after him. I went up to him, and I said, "You were also with the Nazarene Jesus." He jumped a foot and began backing away, protesting that he didn't know what I was talking about. He was acting so guilty, like someone who's come to steal the silver or something. So I followed him and said, "Certainly you're one of them, for you are a Galilean. Your tongue gives you away." Well, he began to sweat and splutter and swear and finally shouting, "I don't even know this man you're talking about." And that's when it happened. I'll never forget it if I live to be 100. As soon as the words were out of his mouth, there was a sudden hush, and into the silence a cockerel crowed. It was a strange thing to hear, because the sky was still dark. But the effect on the man was even stranger. He clutched his throat as if somebody had stabbed him, or maybe as if he just wanted to take the words back. And then at that very moment, they led the prisoner Jesus out into the courtyard, bruised and bound. He only looked at the Galilean, not saying a single word, but the big fella burst into tears and raced out of the place as if the devil himself was after him. Which maybe he was. Then the soldiers hustled Jesus out of there, and I never saw him again. They said the Romans gave him a trial and took him out and crucified him. That's what they said. But it was old Caiaphas who made it happen, you can bet on that. I've learned a lot since that night. I've been trying to find out who this Jesus was and why were they conducting that trial. the most surprising thing about it is that some people are saying that this Jesus isn't dead, that he's the Son of God and alive again. All Jerusalem is buzzing with it. Caiaphas is fit to be tied, especially since the big Galilean, whose name turns out to be Peter, has been preaching all over the city about it. And he isn't afraid anymore. He doesn't seem to be afraid of anything now. Don't you think that's strange? I keep remembering the cockerel, the one that crowed that night in the dark. Do you suppose the cockerel had anything to do with it? Maybe someday I'll know more. But every time I hear a cockerel crow, I think of Jesus of Nazareth on his way to death, and of Peter the Galilean, who denied him.